This is TWiT.
visionOS 2.2, according to 9 to 5 Mac, is bringing some upgrades, 3 upgrades that make the Vision Pro actually a huge boost, a huge. Now we've talked about Mac virtual display.
They overstated a little bit.
Are they overstating it?
I think
well,
so.
it's just, I mean, it's 3 and it's not really 3 is basically it, because it's really 1, which is the stuff
The
we
new
talked
display
about,
modes.
the Mac display modes, and the fact that the basic mode is also clearer than it was before. And then what's their third item?
Routing audio to the right place.
It fixes a bug involving sound.
Yeah.
Okay, well, wow, you convinced me.
Wow, let's all buy a Vision Pro, kids. They say it truly makes the Vision Pro a next-gen computer.
Not the strongest. I mean, that headline cannot be backed up by the story.
It's great that Apple's adding value to the product. I mean, I don't think that when we were hopeful last year before the debut, we thought that like by this time there would be a big update that everybody loves and appreciates and agrees is a great thing for the system. And it's like, the feature that allows you to use it as a display for the computer you do actual work on. It's a bigger display and it's better detail.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's true. But if you go back to when this product was announced and people were talking about features of the Vision Pro, I'd say even back then, people said that Mac display thing might be the killer app. Like, I think that actually very early on, people were like, whoa, that might be really interesting to use this. And I think it is. Of course, we're still talking about it, this extended version of it being in beta. So, we're coming up on 18 months since they first announced this product, and that killer feature still hasn't shipped. But maybe now is the time. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, but what I'm getting at is that like if Apple had decided that we like virtual reality, we think VR goggles and VR hardware from Meta and whatever are interesting products. We think there's only one use case, really great use case for it, and that is as a floating display that goes wherever you go. And they decided that all we're going to do is do a VR headset that acts as an external display for your iPad or your Mac. How much less money would it have cost?
I don't know.
I mean, when you consider how much a really good display, like people will spend $500 to $1,000 on a decent like gaming display, and so if you use that as a benchmark and said, Apple, what could you have done if you just we'll put some other stuff in it too, but primarily you're selling this as an external display, and the budget, the retail budget is $1,000 or $1,200.
But I think
that
the
doesn't
killer
make
app.
sense.
Sorry,
Apple's cheapest display doesn't cost $1,000.
So it's a bargain.
Well, so the problem is that to deliver, to me, there's a few killer apps that are in there. I think that I think that the movie, if I'm not with my family, I watch movies on the Apple Vision Pro. Like it is the best screen I've ever owned. Like as far as watching a film that's there. I mean, it just really is. It's sharper. It sounds better. All those things. And I think that the immersive, even though I think Apple's making a lot of missteps with the stuff that they're publishing, I think that eventually there's a lot of people that someone sees something and you see a couple minutes of it and there's some motion of that. You're like, oh, this is going to be great when people actually have cameras and do it more. I do think that the screen I poo-pooed because I have so many screens at home, but now that I'm traveling, when I'm in a plane, it's a pretty big deal. it's a pretty amazing experience to have that big screen in front of me and be able to actually get stuff done in coach, So I think that is there. My newest thing right now has been, I'm getting to the age where you have to start paying attention to blood pressure. And so I take my blood pressure pretty often now. And I tested the meditation app. I was like, I turn everything into a research project. 6 minutes with the meditation app and my systolic and diastolic dropped over 10 points. And I suddenly got into like, I have to admit, I turned it on. I was like, that's cute. But once you get into 5 or 10 minutes of it, it's actually a pretty amazing experience, to kind of like it seems like a silly thing from the surface that I actually am starting to really enjoy. So I think that's, those types of things I think are pretty interesting. I think Jigspace we talked about it earlier. It's a great app. Apple just needs to make it accessible. Like they need to either buy the company and do something with it, or Sherlock them and do something and make Keynote able to do those things. But something has to happen where you're able to build that kind of experience less expensively and more easily, or Jigspace figures it out, like how to build a business model that actually makes sense. But there is you just see this huge gold mine of how to put things together, how to build things, how to build IKEA furniture where you use all the screws, like how to do all those things are things that I think that would be really, that's the thing that I look at.
I need to buy a $3,500 headset so I can figure out how to put together a $200 side table. That's a good use of my money.
With half the swear words, like it's
all those swear words can't add up. I have to say.
So the it's all the stress, so no, but I think that there are many complex things that I'm pretty excited about. Again, I think that I'm personally wish that Apple hadn't cut as many corners as they did. I would have paid $6,000 if they had done 120 frames a second. So because you need to be able to develop for that far end, and you can't develop for that far end if it doesn't exist. And it's easier to go back and say, okay, now we're going to do a cheaper one that does all the things. But I think that the problem is delivering those movies to the screen at the frame rate and the resolution that they're doing it required probably almost all the processing power that you're looking at there. So there's not that much. If you're able to see through it and be able to see the environment around you and then put up a screen, you're probably looking at $3,000 or $4,000. It's not that, I don't think it would have saved a lot to say, I just want to play, a 4K image, in there are companies that do 1080 per eye, but they're cheap and weird, and it's not the same, so.
I have to say, though, all the ads Meta's putting out this holiday season to get the Meta Quest are probably good for the Vision Pro. They're good for the category anyway. They show people using it to do all the things that you would expect, a nerd helmet would do. And I think that's probably good for
Quest
Apple.
Is great. I mean, Supernatural is the best app on the Quest, in my opinion.
A lot of fun. Yeah.
But it's,
I like the boxing games. I like the music games and so forth. But So here's an interesting idea, and I hope it comes true. The president of Real Madrid, the big soccer team in Spain, is upgrading their stadium, and they apparently are thinking of making it possible to attend a game in the Vision Pro. This is reported by Marca. He says, everybody wants to come to Santiago Bernabeu, and that's why we're negotiating with Apple to be able to wear glasses and watch the match as if you were at the stadium. It would be the infinite Santiago. I think that's kind of interesting.
I actually know a lot about this kind of coverage.
Yeah, because in the 9 to 5 Mac story, they say they don't go into what it would take to do that. What would it take to do that?
Also, just parenthetically to add a little context, it's not as though you'd be really suspicious of this if this was a VR company that is we're in negotiations with Apple to create technology for this. Oftentimes it's self-promotional. Right. This was just something that in the context of we're building this new stadium. Yeah, we know we've got addressing an actual complaint. Well, one of the ways we're trying to address this is that we're actually talking to Apple about allowing people to visit the stadium and VR. So interesting. Early, but interesting.
Soccer games are really hard to do in VR. I've done a lot of them
because they use the whole big wide stadium, right?
The pitch is too big, and so what happens is that the resolution breaks down, or you're in the wrong place most of the time. So where we've put cameras in the past or midfield, we put cameras at the goal. The goal is obviously really cool, and the reason the goal is cool is because you have something in the foreground that tells you you're in 3D. You see a lot of dimension. The problem is no one's there most of the time. Then you put it in the middle of the pitch, and then you everyone's too far away. It's just 2D, and then it's low resolution. And then you put it in the crowd, and it doesn't make any sense. It's really low resolution. And even though these are really high resolution cameras and screens and everything else, it's really hard to find a place in a soccer. I mean, I kind of gave up on it. I just have to say that I feel like this is we thought of this 8 years ago, and then we did a bunch of it, and then we were like, this is things that work exceptionally well in VR are close quarter. So MMA, boxing, that type of thing. If they had done an immersive record of the boxing matches that Netflix did, that would be something that people would want to watch, because when it's close up, remember that the active area that really makes sense in VR is 5 to 20 feet. That's the world, is 5 to 20 feet. And anything longer than 20 feet away is, it's okay. And you'll see that if you look at all the examples that they show, if anyone has a headset, you put them on, The stuff that's 5 to 20 feet away looks amazing. Everything else is just kind of like, okay, it's fine. And what Apple proved is if you get really close, it's really uncomfortable. I think that.
So is it foolish to say let's do this? Make a virtual stadium.
Knock themselves. Maybe they'll figure out something that we didn't figure out 8 years ago. But all of many people.
Because what it sounds like is he's not trying to do that was cool. I'm at the goal line or I'm on the ball or whatever. He wants to make it so you're there at the stadium. I don't know if that's doable. Right?
I don't know if it. Again, it's just you got to. Maybe I'm always looking forward to being proven wrong on a production pipeline. Like I would not move the cameras the way Apple moved in Submerged. There's a couple shots there that I was like, I would have never done that, and it totally worked. And then there's a bunch of stuff they did in the weekend that I would never do, and I would still never do. So I'm only more sure of it now. So I think that, but soccer I can say a lot of people have dulled their swords whacking on the soccer wall, with VR. Like this is like, it's like
whacking on the VR wall. Show title.
It's not the right venue for this at the current resolution and technology that we have right now. It's just not the right place for this. And there's so many places that are.
Is there a sport that would be better? Shot put,
boxing.
There you go.
Boxing, MMA, field. Wrestling. Anything that's close quarter, is anything that's going to all happen mostly 20 feet away, where most of the action is going to be 20 feet from the camera. It's going to be. It looks great. And so those things are the and things that go wide. There's this temptation. You saw this with the concert for one. There's this temptation to try to fill the whole space, but you don't actually want the person to look to the side. You want them to feel the side, and then you want them to look at what's in front of them. And because every time they see the black, it takes them out of the experience. And so I think that, but again, I think that there are sports that really lend themselves to it, and concerts and all kinds of other things. It's just that people often go after the ones that are harder. Yeah.
But I think that we talked last week about that really cool looking F1 app, VR app for the Vision Pro that was pulled while they discussed rights to with F1 for the footage of it. And I don't necessarily, when a couple of years ago, I might have thought that, oh, well, great, I can actually be in the cockpit and I can feel like I'm actually there. When actually, that's such a great example of to be able to watch baseball or basketball or even soccer or football or anything, where in front of me is the entire field, like a game version, a video game version of the field, that I've got a God's eye view on things, whether it's real or whether it's something that's being simulated. Remember that, I think, was it next week that the Simpsons, they're doing a special Simpsons simulcast of an NFL game where in real time they're replacing all of the players with Simpsons characters.
Is that what they're going to do? I saw the ad for that. They're going to actually, it'll be the game as Simpson characters playing it?
Yeah,
and they did that with Toy Story characters last season, I think.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, it's what happens is you can build the characters out, and it depends on how much detail that they want to do it, but you're basically building every player, and then you're using a variety of algorithms. I mean, people call them AI, of course, because that's cool, but they're just using a bunch of things that are going to track that information. It's going to extrapolate it. It gets a little complicated when they get into a bundle. So, but when they're in a pile, it's hard. But when they're running, it's able to do a pretty good job of figuring out where they're moving. It's not actually, and then what it does is you create a skeleton that is just what we call the rigid bodies. The rigid bodies in someone's body are things that normally won't change in relationship to each other unless something horrible happens. And so usually
like playing football.
Yeah, well, there's parts of it. So rigid bodies are your forearm, your upper arm, your chest cavity, your hips, those types of things. You track those and you turn those into a skeleton, and you take that skeleton, you apply it to the CG, and you can do that these days in real time. That's not and then you can track their position. And I mean, there's a lot. People are trying to get to a point where you could actually stand on the field and have VR versions of the football players, and you could watch from where the referee is, or you could watch from where, and that stuff's close.
What I'm getting at is I don't necessarily want to place myself on the field. I want this basic setup of in front of me on a table, whether real or virtual, I have the entire field in front of me. So let's get into baseball, where when there's a hit into left field, I want to follow where the ball's going, like where the play is going, I can go there. But I can also select virtual displays around it that are live video feeds, because there are times when like right in front of me would be the big screen, which would be like the conventional TV coverage of it, where the director is calling all the shots. But like when I'm at a real ball game, I love looking at the interactions between the catcher and the home plate umpire. I would want like a fixed position on that, and I want a fixed position on the pitcher, and I want a fixed position on this, so that after the thing's been hit into the midfield, I want to see how the catcher is setting up the play. I want to see if he's doing those wonderful Jedi mind tricks that catchers sometimes try to play against the umpire, like making them think that the strike zone is bigger than it is, or intentionally shielding their view of something that they don't want them to see at the plate so that they'll get a better chance of getting a good call. The ability to like interpret this as exactly how I specifically want to be able to see it, given that there's so many video feeds happening at the same time, during the airing of the shooting of a live game, the ability to at least give me a menu of viewpoints to choose from, again, not in an immersive 3D way, but basically be able to see, oh, I really want to see what's happening at the plate. Like, is he signaling for cutoff, or is he actually preparing for a play at the plate? You know, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
I think that creative stuff like that is a little bit lateral, but I think it's a really, really interesting. It would make me a lot more interested, not in a $3,000 headset, but maybe $1,000 headset.
One of Apple's Vision Pro app nominees was the NBA app, and that's an example where it's not quite the annotated single game, but they've got the multi-view where you can place, different games in a, Ozymandias and Watchmen kind of view. If you want, I can see all the NBA at once, but it speaks. And in the MLB app, they've been experimenting with this too, where you're sort of watching the game on the Jumbotron, but there's also like a 3D field because they've got sensors on every player, or they got cameras that can measure all the spaces that every player is moving through at any given time and where the ball is. And I do wonder, if one, I think maybe there are multiple aspects of this, but like Alex said, some sports might actually be improved by being, by being annotated a little bit more than being immersive, and that's okay. As somebody who has been to a lot of baseball and football games live, the live stadium experience can be kind of annotated too by the scoreboards and stuff like that. So I do wonder, I would be really interested in getting a front row seat for, a front row seat courtside at an NBA game. I mean, that would be really interesting. It would be a very different experience. And
you could do that, right, Alex?
But
everything's within 20 feet if you're in courtside.
What we've done is we've put them right in the what do we call it? Middle
scorer's table,
mid court. Yeah, right at the scorer's table. Right, set it right up in front of where the scorer's table is, but still out of bounds, obviously. And then and then you look at it, and it is the problem we had when we did it, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, was that our frame rate wasn't high enough. So this gets into where
they're moving pretty quick. Those guys,
really,
the ball. Yeah.
So it's at 30 frames a second, which is where we were at when we were doing 4K per eye stereo, 180. So you could turn all the way to the side, or not 180, 360. You could go all the way around. But the problem we had was
because I want to see Jack Nicholson in the back there. Yeah,
exactly. And so at 60, we felt at 60 frames a second to be better, but really where we wanted to get to is 120 because that action does make a difference. But you suddenly realize why people pay $2,000 a seat when you get to sit there.
Courtside's amazing.
It's just an amazing experience, and people are coming by, and again, there's enough action. That's a good example of where it does work. And there's other things you can do, like we were talking about. Golf is the one that doesn't work, right? In general, golf is not a great experience for this. But what we did is we were able to put 360 cameras at different greens. So that's a place that it does make a difference. And then
maybe put it on the pin. Then you could see the ball coming at you.
We just put it to the side. They're still playing a game. I mean, it's just like there's scores.
The pin's not, I guess.
Anyway, these are big cameras. I mean, these are a camera that's, it's like a basketball size camera. And so
make the pin easier to find.
But what was interesting is that if you took the content and just put the 16:9, the content you see on TV, but without all of the data on it. So no lower thirds, none of that. You just put a big screen and you can make it as big as you want. And then you have all the data on one side and your social stuff on the other side. It's a great experience. You're sitting in there and you're kind of in it. Like you're seeing Twitter feeds, you're seeing all the data that you want when you want it. You're seeing a big screen, and then every once in a while you just transition to the 360 experience. When there's something happening there, and then you go back to it.
The problem is, can you do that live?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that live.
Because that's the problem.
That's all
if you have to do it in post, the game's over. Everybody knows the score. Nobody really cares very much.
No, this is. There's a latency of 20 seconds, but same as YouTube.
Well, that's live enough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It strikes me the best thing would be chess. The World Chess Championships going on right now. Nobody watches just the game. You always watch the commentary, and it's right there. It's close. You could look left, look right,
that would
look
be
left
great.
Again.
How did we not think of that?
Doesn't move very fast, so the frame rate's not important.
Next year we're going to do that. Yeah, I think that has to be done.
Well, yeah, have you tried the new Google AI experiment where it will play chess? It's a chess game, but you give it an AI prompt and it will develop a set of chess pieces.
Yeah,
and it's funny. It's exactly what Google is kind of meant to do, which is like, oh wow, that's kind of cool, that's kind of fun, and then you think about it one level later and think, my God, the Earth resources that are being consumed to make two sets of chess pieces that look like Brussels sprouts.
It's just, and by the way, whoever designed it doesn't really understand much about chess, because the way the board is angled when you're playing makes it actually very unpleasant. Yeah. And anyway, who wants to play chess with cheese pieces? Really? Right?
If they were edible and there are no if you could get rid of like the
that's
rule
true.
where
If
the
you
pawn
could eat
advances,
the pawn after you take it, I think that's a bad idea.
That increases the stakes.
Yeah. So let's see. We're going to play cheese versus wine, which I think that's a natural.
I do like the fact that like you choose a prompt for one, and then it will choose for you like an opposing thing to that concept. So that I think I did plumbing, and it chose like architecture or like electronics as the plumbing set was actually very good.
It seems like I realize there could be a how have we not had candy chess that you just if you take the person's candy, you eat it.
There are chess sets that are little vodka, like little alcohol bottles.
Shot chess.
I was going to say,
actually, that's a good way to do it, because if you have to drink the person's piece after you take it,
chances are played a version of checkers like that on MASH once. Shot glass checkers.
Shot glass checkers, baby. Whoever designed this doesn't play chess, because this is the worst possible angle to look at a chess game. It just really is. I can't even figure out. I think
I had my problem was that like they weren't. They should have to do the like if there's a light colored set, there has to be a dark colored set, and whatever happens to be light colored set has to go first. And that's when I played it on the phone, at least I got like the typical you're sitting at a table across from another person view. So maybe that's just the desktop view.
Right. Yeah, I can't. This is impossible. This is just awful. I can't even. That's why I'm losing to wine. I'm playing cheese right now.